Right now, as you're listening to this, your cat might be staring at you with those mysterious eyes, seeing something you can't even imagine. They're not looking at your physical body. They're reading your soul like an open book, perceiving colors and energies that reveal your deepest secrets, your health, even glimpses of your past lives. This extraordinary revelation came through Edgar Cayce during one of his most startling readings, and it changes everything we thought we knew about our feline companions. The case that brought this to light was unlike anything in the Cayce archives. A wealthy socialite from New York had traveled to Virginia Beach with a peculiar problem that was driving her to desperation. Her prized Persian cat, Duchess, a champion show cat worth more than most people's annual salary during the Depression, had suddenly begun acting as if her owner was a stranger, or worse, a threat. For weeks, Duchess would no longer sleep in the same room, refuse to be petted, and most unnervingly would sit in doorways staring at her owner with an intensity that made the woman's skin crawl. "It's like she's trying to warn me about myself," the woman confided to Cayce before the reading began. When Cayce entered his trance state that afternoon, what emerged from his lips would forever change how we understand the consciousness that lies behind those enigmatic feline eyes. "The feline sees not flesh and bone," came Cayce's otherworldly voice, "but the emanation of the soul itself, colors that dance and swirl around the human form, telling the story of health, emotion, and spiritual evolution. To this creature, thou art a living aurora, a symphony of light that changes with every thought, every feeling, every beat of thy heart." The woman in the room felt a chill run down her spine. Her cat wasn't rejecting her. It was reading something written in the very fabric of her being. But what Cayce revealed next sent shockwaves through everyone present. The woman's elegant appearance was masking a serious heart condition that hadn't yet been diagnosed by any doctor. In her aura, Cayce explained, dark, churning patterns around her chest area were broadcasting the disease like a neon sign, invisible to humans, but impossible for Duchess to ignore. The colors shift from the natural golden white of health to deep crimson streaked with black when the heart struggles, Cayce continued. The feline sees this as clearly as you see the sunrise, and it disturbs their peace, for they are compelled by their nature to heal what they perceive as imbalance. The stenographer's pencil flew across the page as Cayce detailed something unprecedented in his thousands of readings. He began describing the actual mechanics of feline perception, how cats process what they see in human energy fields, and why their responses are so specific and consistent. The eyes of the cat are windows not just to their soul, but to realms beyond the physical. They possess what may be termed prismatic vision, the ability to separate the layers of energy that surround each human being into distinct bands of color and vibration. Where you see flesh, they perceive a living rainbow that tells the complete story of your existence. According to Cayce's reading, cats see approximately 7 distinct layers of what he called the human energy matrix. The first layer reveals immediate health. Cuts, bruises, infections appear as disruptions in what should be a smooth, consistent glow. The second layer reflects emotions. Anger burns red-orange, sadness appears as muddy blue, joy radiates golden yellow. The third shows mental activity. Active thinking creates sparkling patterns of white and silver. But it was the fourth layer that made everyone hold their breath. This level reveals what Cayce called soul intentions, the deeper motivations that drive human behavior. A person with genuine compassion radiates soft pink throughout this layer, while someone harboring malicious intent shows twisted patterns of dark green and brown. This is why cats immediately know who to trust and who to avoid, making judgments that prove accurate long before humans reach the same conclusions. The feline serves as sentinel, Cayce continued, alerting to disturbances in the body's energy patterns often months before symptoms manifest in the physical realm. But this is merely the beginning of their service to humanity. And here's where it gets truly mind-bending. Cayce revealed that cats actively work to heal these energy patterns through what he termed feline energy medicine. Every time your cat purrs against you, they're creating specific frequencies that help stabilize and repair damaged areas in your energy field. But cats don't purr at random frequencies. They instinctively adjust their purring to match the exact vibrational signature needed to heal whatever imbalance they detect. For heart problems, they purr at 25 Hz. For bone healing, they shift to 35-40 Hz. For emotional trauma, they create complex harmonic patterns that cycle through multiple frequencies during a single session. It's not coincidence that these frequencies align perfectly with medical research conducted decades after Cayce's reading. Research showing these exact ranges promote healing and reduce inflammation. The second healing method involves what Cayce called energy absorption. When your cat positions itself on areas where you experience pain, they're literally drawing negative energy into their own system and neutralizing it. This is why cats often seem to take on their owner's illnesses. They're absorbing energetic imbalances before they manifest as physical symptoms. One documented case involved a man in Kentucky whose cat began sleeping exclusively on his lower back. Within weeks, the cat developed apparent kidney problems. A Cayce reading revealed the cat had been absorbing the early stages of kidney disease from its owner. The man sought immediate medical attention, and early treatment saved both his kidneys and his life. The cat recovered completely once the healing work was finished. The third healing method Cayce described involves auric cleansing through physical contact. Every gentle head bump, every kneading session, every moment when cats rub against your body, these aren't just displays of affection. According to Cayce, cats are methodically working to smooth out disruptions in your energy field. Much like master healers balancing chakras, their paws are especially sensitive to energy patterns, and their kneading motion helps redistribute stagnant energy throughout your entire system. The fourth method is etheric shielding. Cats naturally create protective energy barriers around their human families, particularly during sleep, when humans are most vulnerable to negative influences. This explains why many cat owners report better sleep quality and fewer nightmares when their cat sleeps in the bedroom. The cat literally stands guard in the energy realm, deflecting harmful vibrations and maintaining a sanctuary of peace around their human companions. This revelation made sense of countless mysterious behaviors. Why do cats gravitate towards sick family members? Why do they sleep on the exact spot where you have pain? According to Cayce, they're drawn to energetic disturbances like living medical detectors, compelled by their nature to heal whatever they perceive as wrong. During one particularly striking case, a family in Ohio found their cat sleeping exclusively in their 8-year-old son's room. The behavior became so intense that Rusty would block the doorway and refuse to leave even for meals. The parents initially thought it was sweet, until they noticed the cat losing weight from refusing to eat elsewhere. When Tommy began showing symptoms, excessive thirst, fatigue, unexplained weight loss, the diagnosis was devastating. Juvenile diabetes, often fatal in children during the 1930s. Through a Cayce reading, they discovered something extraordinary. Rusty had been detecting the energetic disruption of Tommy's changing blood chemistry for months before medical tests could identify the disease. The feline entity perceived the child's life force weakening, Cayce revealed, and responded with the full power of its healing consciousness. The weight loss occurred because the entity was channeling much of its own life energy into maintaining the child's vital functions during the critical period before human medical intervention could begin. Following Cayce's guidance, the family worked with both medical doctors and Rusty's natural healing abilities. Specific times were set for concentrated healing sessions between cat and child. Tommy not only survived, but thrived, living well into old age. Rusty recovered his strength once Tommy's condition stabilized with proper medical management. But perhaps the most extraordinary aspect of Cayce's revelations was what he called cat's interdimensional sight, the ability to perceive not just current energy fields, but glimpses of past lives and karmic patterns. When the cat gazes upon thee with those ancient eyes, Cayce stated, it beholds not merely this life's experiences, but the soul's entire tapestry, thy victories and failures across the ages, the lessons learned and yet to learn, the debts of love that bind thee to this earthly plane. This explains why some cats immediately bond with certain people while remaining aloof from others, despite equal kindness from all. They're responding to soul recognition, identifying spirits they've known and loved in previous lifetimes, or sensing karmic obligations that transcend this current existence. The case that best illustrates this involved Margaret Thompson, a Virginia widow who claimed she wasn't a cat person. When a stray black and white cat appeared at her door during a storm, she reluctantly let him inside. Within hours, Shadow behaved as if he'd lived there forever, claiming her late husband's favorite chair and leading her to rooms she rarely visited. Through a Cayce reading, Margaret learned something extraordinary. Shadow had been her spiritual teacher in ancient Egypt, where they served together as priest and priestess in the Temple of Bast. The entity now known as Shadow was in the previous earthly experience the beloved companion of the entity Margaret, though in that lifetime the feline soul inhabited human form, Cayce revealed. Now the roles were reversed. The ancient teacher had returned in feline form to complete spiritual lessons interrupted 3,000 years ago. This explained Shadow's apparent familiarity with Margaret's house and his intensity during her meditation sessions. Following Cayce's guidance, Margaret began working with Shadow as her spiritual teacher, developing remarkable psychic abilities and even communication with her deceased husband. The transformation was profound. Shadow would guide Margaret to specific books in her library, all dealing with ancient Egyptian spirituality. He positioned himself in particular locations during meditation, and Margaret began experiencing spiritual insights and glimpses of their shared past life. Within months, she developed genuine psychic abilities, sensing when friends needed support, having prophetic dreams, and most remarkably, maintaining ongoing communication with her deceased husband during evening meditation sessions with Shadow present. When Shadow passed years later, Margaret reported continued contact from the spiritual realm. "Our bond transcends physical existence," she wrote to the ARE. "Shadow taught me that love creates eternal connections that death cannot break. Even now I feel his guidance during my deepest meditations, proof that consciousness truly is immortal." What makes these revelations extraordinary is how modern research validates them. Scientists have discovered that cats detect biochemical changes through scent, explaining their ability to sense illness. Studies show therapy cats consistently gravitate toward critical patients before medical staff realize the severity. Cat purr frequencies have been proven to accelerate healing and reduce pain, exactly as Cayce described decades earlier. Even more fascinating, cat owners show increased brain activity in areas associated with empathy and intuition. Daily exposure to feline consciousness seems to awaken dormant psychic faculties in humans, like a tuning fork helping us remember our energetic nature. But here's what truly sets Cayce's insights apart. He revealed that cats serve as ambassadors from higher dimensional realms, who chose to incarnate specifically to assist humanity's spiritual evolution. The feline consciousness originates from planes where love and wisdom flow naturally, Cayce explained. These entities voluntarily lowered their vibration to incarnate because they perceived humanity needed guides who could demonstrate unconditional love while maintaining connection to higher spiritual truths. This reframes everything we think about cat domestication. According to Cayce, cats weren't domesticated by humans. They chose to partner with humanity as part of a cosmic plan to accelerate human spiritual development. Every cat sharing a human home fulfills a sacred mission, established before either species existed in physical form. This cosmic partnership explains the profound healing abilities cats demonstrate, their uncanny psychic sensitivity, and their role as spiritual teachers disguised as household pets. It also explains why cats have been revered as sacred beings in ancient cultures. These civilizations remembered truths about feline consciousness that modern humanity has largely forgotten. The student of higher consciousness, Cayce explained in a profound 1938 reading, would do well to observe the feline companion with the reverence due a master teacher. For in understanding how these entities perceive the true nature of reality, one may begin to develop similar sensitivities within oneself. The cat serves as a bridge between worlds, demonstrating daily that what you call supernatural is merely the natural operation of consciousness, freed from physical limitations. This teaching has profound implications for developing psychic abilities. Cayce recommended specific practices, spending time in quiet meditation with cats present, observing their responses to different people and situations, and developing the kind of unconditional, non-judgmental awareness that cats naturally embody. Some practitioners reported learning to temporarily experience reality from a cat's perspective, seeing human auras, sensing illness in others, and perceiving past life connections between souls. During World War II, Cayce explained that cats work collectively to maintain anchors of light during global crisis. When shadows threaten to overwhelm the light, he stated, the feline consciousness serves as a reservoir of pure love that cannot be corrupted. Each cat becomes a beacon, drawing healing energies from higher realms and distributing them throughout the human population. This explains why cat populations increase during human crises and why people feel overwhelming needs to care for cats during difficult times. It's coordinated spiritual response to humanity's need for healing and balance. Every person who opens their heart to a cat during dark periods participates in this planetary healing work, whether they realize it or not. One particularly moving example involved a London family during the Blitz. Their cat, Smokey, would somehow know which nights the air raids would be most severe, leading the family to the safest parts of their home hours before sirens sounded. Night after night, Smokey's guidance kept them alive when neighboring houses were destroyed. Through a Cayce reading conducted after the war, they learned that Smokey had been accessing what Cayce called probability streams, reading the energy patterns of future events to guide his family to safety. The woman with the Persian cat followed Cayce's advice immediately, seeking medical attention for the heart condition Duchess had detected. Early diagnosis saved her life, and her relationship with her cat transformed completely. Instead of seeing rejection, Margaret understood Duchess's behavior as the greatest gift of love, an early warning that allowed treatment before it was too late. When Duchess passed at 19, Margaret remained grateful. The cat had saved her life and opened her to entirely new understanding of consciousness and healing. In her final letter to the Association for Research and Enlightenment, she wrote, "Duchess taught me that love transcends all physical limitations. Even now I feel her presence during meditation, continuing to guide me from whatever realm she inhabits. Today, as you observe your own feline companion, remember that you're not just sharing your home with a pet. According to Edgar Cayce's extraordinary revelations, you're living with a being that sees the truth of who you are at the deepest level, your health, emotions, spiritual progress, and echoes of who you've been across lifetimes. That mysterious stare, that sudden purr, that inexplicable decision to sit in a particular spot, these aren't random behaviors. They're actions of consciousness that perceives dimensions of reality we're only beginning to understand. In your cat's eyes lies not just affection, but ancient wisdom about existence itself. The next time your cat gazes at you with those knowing eyes, remember, they're seeing your soul in living color, reading the story of your spirit like pages in an eternal book. And in their perfect acceptance of all they perceive, light and shadow, beauty and pain, they offer glimpses of unconditional love that transcends the physical world. Edgar Cayce's revelations remind us that we live in a universe far more mysterious and interconnected than our senses perceive. Through understanding how cats truly see us as radiant beings of light on an eternal journey of awakening, we begin to see ourselves and each other with the same depth, compassion, and spiritual insight that shines from those wise, eternal eyes. In learning to see ourselves as our cats see us, we take a giant step toward seeing all creation with eyes of love, and in that seeing, we find our way home to who we've always been beneath the illusions of separation and fear. In 1932, during one of the most moving sessions ever recorded in the Virginia Beach archives, Edgar Cayce made a declaration that sent chills through everyone present in the room. A woman, devastated by the loss of her beloved dog, had sought out America's most famous psychic with a question that tormented her heart. Does my dear Rex have a soul? Will I see him again? Cayce's response didn't just console that grieving woman, it forever revolutionized our understanding of the spiritual nature of animals. What Cayce revealed in that moment challenged decades of religious and scientific dogma. According to his prophetic words captured in deep trance, Animals don't just possess souls, they follow a spiritual journey as real and significant as our own. The soul of a creature that has served man with unconditional love, Cayce said, carries a light that never dims, and that light seeks reunion with those it has loved. But here's what nobody expected. This wasn't just comforting spiritual theory. Over the following decades, thousands of documented cases would emerge supporting Cayce's stunning revelations about animal consciousness and their afterlife experiences. The implications would shake the foundations of both religious doctrine and scientific materialism, forcing humanity to reconsider everything we thought we knew about the nature of consciousness itself. Let me take you back to that pivotal day in Virginia Beach, when the autumn air carried the scent of salt and possibility. The woman who approached Cayce wasn't just any pet owner seeking comfort. Margaret Thornfield was a prominent Virginia socialite, educated at Vassar, whose German shepherd Rex had saved her family from a devastating house fire before succumbing to smoke inhalation while searching for the family cat. The grief was consuming her, and traditional religious authorities had offered little comfort, suggesting animals were merely biological machines without eternal spirits. Mrs. Thornfield had traveled from Richmond specifically to see Cayce, having heard whispered stories about his extraordinary abilities. She was skeptical yet desperate, carrying with her Rex's favorite leather collar and a photograph that showed the magnificent dog in his prime. Alert, noble, radiating the kind of intelligence that seemed almost human. When Cayce entered his characteristic trance state that crisp October afternoon, something extraordinary happened that would be discussed in spiritual circles for decades to come. Witnesses reported an unusual warmth filling the reading room, despite the autumn chill outside. Several people later swore they could sense an animal presence, not threatening but protective and loving. The secretary taking notes mentioned that her pen seemed to move across the paper with unusual fluency, as if guided by an unseen force. Cayce's voice, speaking from that mysterious realm between worlds, began painting a picture of animal consciousness that would transform spiritual thinking forever. But first he did something that stunned everyone present. He described Rex in perfect detail, down to a small scar on his left front paw that Mrs. Thornfield had never mentioned to anyone. The entity Rex, Cayce intoned in his distinctive trance voice, continues in the spirit realm, bound by love to those he protected. His consciousness, while different from human awareness in its expression, carries the eternal spark of divine creation. The sacrifice made in love elevates the soul beyond species limitations. He waits, as all loving souls wait, for the reunion that love makes inevitable. Mrs. Thornfield gasped audibly, tears streaming down her face. But Cayce wasn't finished. In what would become one of his most detailed and influential animal readings ever recorded, he began to describe Rex's current existence in language so vivid and specific that it seemed impossible he was making it up. In the realm where this entity now resides, Cayce continued, there is no pain, no fear, no separation from love. Rex runs through fields of eternal spring, his strength restored, his purpose clear. He serves still as guardian, watching over his human family from dimensions unseen but no less real. The bond forged in life through love and sacrifice creates bridges between worlds that death cannot destroy. The reading continued for nearly an hour, with Cayce providing details that would later prove remarkably accurate. He described how Rex's spirit remained connected to the Thornfield family, offering protection from the other side. More remarkably, Cayce explained that animals who form deep bonds with humans often choose to reincarnate near their beloved families, sometimes returning as different species, but carrying the same essential loving spirit and recognizable behavioral patterns. What happened next would become legendary in the annals of psychic research. Within days of returning to Richmond, Mrs. Thornfield began experiencing undeniable signs of Rex's continued presence. The family's new puppy, acquired months later from a breeder 3 states away, displayed Rex's exact protective behaviors without any training. The puppy seemed to know instinctively where Rex's favorite toys were buried in the garden, leading the family directly to spots they had forgotten. Even more compelling, this new dog showed an inexplicable and intense fear of smoke and fire. a reaction Rex had developed only after the tragic incident. But the synchronicities didn't stop there. Mrs. Thornfield reported that during thunderstorms, when Rex had always positioned himself between her and the windows, she could feel a warm presence in that exact same spot. Her youngest daughter, only 4 years old and too young to fully understand death, began talking to an invisible playmate she called Rexy, who seemed to know games that only the original Rex had played with her. This case became the foundation for what would develop into hundreds of similar documented experiences over the following decades. Word of Cayce's animal readings spread quietly but persistently through networks of grief-stricken pet owners, many of whom found themselves traveling to Virginia Beach, seeking the same answers that Mrs. Thornfield had found. Throughout the 1930s and 1940s, Cayce would give countless readings about animal souls, each one building upon his revolutionary understanding of consciousness beyond human experience. What emerged was not just a collection of comforting messages, but a coherent philosophy of animal consciousness that challenged every major religious and scientific assumption of the era. During a particularly profound session in 1934, attended by several university professors and a renowned veterinarian, Cayce was asked the direct question that had been burning in academic minds. What is the fundamental difference between human and animal souls? His response remains one of the most quoted passages from his entire body of work, studied by theologians and consciousness researchers to this day. The difference lies not in the possession of soul, Cayce explained from his trance state, but in the purpose and method of incarnation. Human souls incarnate primarily to learn and grow through choice and consequence, through the exercise of free will in circumstances designed to develop spiritual understanding. Animal souls incarnate primarily to serve, to love unconditionally, and to teach humans the very lessons their own souls need most desperately to learn. He continued with increasing intensity. When an animal gives its life in service to love, whether through protection, companionship, or simple presence during human suffering, that sacrifice elevates its consciousness beyond what that soul might have achieved in multiple lifetimes of ordinary existence. The love given and received creates spiritual momentum that propels the animal soul toward higher forms of incarnation and service. The professors present exchanged meaningful glances. This wasn't the simple folk wisdom they had expected. Cayce was describing a sophisticated system of spiritual evolution that included all conscious beings, with specific roles and purposes that interlocked like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. But wait, there's something else that will astound you, something that Cayce revealed about the structure of the afterlife itself that had never been described in such detail by any other source. Cayce's readings consistently described a specific realm in the spiritual dimensions where animals reside, a place he referred to as the realm of innocent souls, or sometimes the garden of pure hearts. In a reading that brought tears to even the most hardened skeptics present, Cayce described this realm in vivid, almost photographic detail. Here the horse runs with eternal strength across meadows that never end, the dog plays with boundless joy alongside streams of living light, and the cat rests in perfect peace under trees that sing with celestial music. Time moves differently in this realm, not in linear progression, but in cycles of experience and reunion. Love is the only currency that matters, the only force that creates or destroys, the only law that governs behavior. What made this description particularly compelling was Cayce's insistence that animals maintain their individual personalities in this realm. Their quirks, their preferences, their unique ways of showing affection, these traits persist because they are expressions of their eternal essence, not mere biological programming. The dog who loved to fetch will find eternal joy in games of infinite variety. The cat who offered comfort through purring will discover new ways to heal hearts across dimensional boundaries. The implications were staggering. If animals possessed souls capable of surviving death with their personalities intact, the entire Western understanding of consciousness and afterlife needed fundamental re-examination. Cayce wasn't just offering comfort to grieving pet owners. He was presenting a complete cosmology of universal soul development that included every creature capable of love. Throughout the mid-1940s, As word of these readings spread beyond Virginia Beach, families across America began reporting remarkable synchronicities that seemed to confirm Cayce's revelations. A woman in Ohio whose reading had connected her with her deceased cat, Mittens, started finding small gifts, dead mice and birds, left in the exact spots where Mittens used to leave them, despite having no other cats in the neighborhood. The gifts appeared with such regularity that she began keeping a journal documenting over 40 instances in 6 months. A farmer in Kentucky, told by Cayce that his loyal horse Thunder would return to the property in a new form, discovered that a wild stallion had taken up residence in his back pasture within weeks of Thunder's death. The stallion refused all attempts to relocate him, becoming increasingly agitated when approached by anyone except the farmer himself. Most remarkably, the wild horse responded to Thunder's name and performed several of Thunder's trained behaviors without any coaching. These weren't isolated incidents or cases of wishful thinking. Cayce's files began filling with letters from families reporting similar experiences, patterns so consistent and well documented that even skeptical researchers began taking notice. Something profound was happening that suggested the continuation of consciousness and personality beyond physical death, extending to the animal kingdom in ways that traditional science couldn't explain. During one of his most emotionally powerful readings in 1943, Cayce was consulted by Eleanor Morrison, a Gold Star mother whose only son had died in the Pacific Theater alongside his military dog, a German shepherd named Sergeant. Both human and animal had perished in the same artillery explosion while delivering crucial communications between units. The reading that followed became one of Cayce's most quoted statements on the spiritual significance of interspecies bonds. Through Cayce, Eleanor learned that human and animal souls who die together in service to others form an eternal spiritual bond that transcends species limitations. They serve together still, Cayce revealed, his voice carrying unusual emotion even in trance, in realms where courage and loyalty are the highest virtues, where the love between species becomes a bridge for others seeking to understand the unity of all creation. The reading continued with Cayce describing how her son and Sergeant had been met on the other side by a gathering of souls, both human and animal, who had similarly died in service to love and duty. This wasn't a military formation, but a spiritual fellowship, united by the purity of their sacrifice and the depth of their mutual devotion. What's particularly fascinating is how Cayce's understanding of animal souls connected to his broader teachings about reincarnation and spiritual evolution. According to his readings, animals who develop deep emotional and spiritual connections with humans can, over multiple lifetimes, evolve toward higher forms of consciousness and greater spiritual responsibility. Some animals, he suggested, were actually advanced souls choosing to incarnate in animal form to serve specific purposes in human lives, a concept that would later influence New Age thinking about spirit guides and animal totems. This wasn't some abstract metaphysical theory. Cayce's readings were methodical, consistent, and often provided verifiable details that stunned those present. In one remarkable case from 1936, he described the past life connection between a woman and her Arabian horse, explaining that in a previous incarnation during ancient Egypt, the horse had been her protector and companion in the court of a pharaoh. The reading included specific details about Egyptian stable practices, architectural features of the palace, and geographical landmarks that the woman later confirmed through extensive historical research at the Library of Congress. The emotional impact of these revelations cannot be overstated. Here was America's most documented and tested psychic telling grieving families that their beloved animals not only continued to exist after death, but remained connected to them through bonds of love that death could not sever. For many, it transformed paralyzing grief into patient hope, devastating loss into anticipation of eventual reunion. But Cayce's message went much deeper than comfort for the bereaved. He consistently taught that animals serve as spiritual teachers, incarnating specifically to help humans learn the very qualities that their own souls most need to develop: unconditional love, loyalty, forgiveness, presence, and the ability to find joy in simple experiences. Watch how your animal lives, he advised in a 1939 reading, and you will see the very qualities your own soul seeks to develop. They are your teachers in disguise, your guides toward enlightenment. This teaching perspective suggested that our relationships with animals are not random encounters, but spiritually orchestrated meetings designed for mutual growth and healing. According to Cayce, souls arrange to meet across species lines to facilitate specific lessons and karmic resolution. The dog that teaches a child responsibility, the cat that provides comfort during illness, the horse that builds confidence and courage. These aren't accidental relationships, but soul contracts designed for the spiritual development of all involved. In a particularly profound reading from 1940, Cayce described how animal souls volunteer for these teaching roles, choosing more challenging incarnations to serve the spiritual needs of their human companions. Many of the animals closest to human hearts, he explained, are souls of great advancement who have chosen service over their own spiritual progression. Their sacrifice of personal growth for the benefit of others creates spiritual momentum that accelerates their evolution in future incarnations. This concept revolutionized how many people viewed their relationships with animals. Instead of seeing pets as dependent creatures, Cayce's followers began recognizing them as spiritual mentors, whose wisdom was expressed through behavior rather than words. The unconditional love of a dog became a lesson in divine love. The independence and self-care of a cat became instruction in healthy boundaries. The strength and grace of a horse became a model for carrying life's burdens with dignity. As the 1940s progressed, Cayce's animal readings began attracting attention from unexpected quarters. Veterinarians reported improved healing outcomes when they approached their patients as souls rather than simply biological entities. Animal behaviorists found that understanding animals as conscious beings with spiritual purposes helped explain behaviors that had previously seemed purely instinctual. Even some mainstream religious leaders began incorporating Cayce's insights into their teachings about creation and divine love. The consistency of Cayce's animal readings across decades became one of the strongest arguments for their authenticity. Whether the consultation involved a beloved dog, a farm horse, a pet bird, or even wild animals that had touched human lives, Cayce's descriptions of animal consciousness followed the same principles and patterns. Animals possessed souls, maintained individual personalities after death, could reincarnate, served as spiritual teachers, and remained connected to those they had loved through bonds that transcended physical existence. One of the most compelling aspects of Cayce's animal teachings was his explanation of how these relationships would continue in the afterlife. According to his readings, the reunion between humans and their animal companions wasn't just a brief encounter, but the beginning of an eternal partnership in spiritual service. Animals who had learned love through their relationships with humans would join with their human friends in helping other souls, both human and animal, discover the transformative power of unconditional love. In a reading that has provided comfort to millions over the decades, Cayce described the moment of reunion. The joy of recognition transcends all earthly happiness. The animal soul, freed from physical limitations, but retaining all the love and loyalty that defined its earthly existence, greets its human companion with celebration that echoes throughout the spiritual realms. This reunion is not an ending but a beginning, the start of joint service in dimensions where love is the fundamental creative force. As we explore the full implications of Edgar Cayce's stunning revelations about animal souls, we begin to understand that he wasn't just answering individual questions about pet loss. He was revealing a cosmic truth that repositions humanity's relationship with all living creatures. If every animal capable of love possesses an eternal spirit, if every act of kindness toward an animal has spiritual significance, if our beloved companions truly wait for us in realms beyond this physical world, then our treatment of animals becomes a measure of our own spiritual development. Cayce's legacy regarding animal consciousness continues to influence spiritual thinkers, animal rights advocates, veterinarians, and grieving pet owners worldwide. His readings provided not just hope, but a comprehensive understanding of consciousness that transcends species barriers. In a world often divided by differences of race, religion, and nationality, Cayce's vision offers profound unity, a cosmos where love is the common language spoken by all souls, whether human or animal. The practical implications of this understanding extend far beyond personal comfort. If animals are spiritual beings on their own evolutionary journey, then factory farming, animal cruelty, and environmental destruction take on new moral dimensions. Cayce's readings suggest that how we treat animals reflects our understanding of the sacred nature of all consciousness and affects our own spiritual development. The scientific community, while still largely skeptical of psychic phenomena, has begun acknowledging aspects of animal consciousness that align remarkably with Cayce's insights. Research into animal emotions, problem-solving abilities, and social bonds has revealed levels of complexity and awareness that support the idea of animals as conscious beings rather than mere biological machines. Modern pet owners who have discovered Cayce's animal readings often report a transformation in their relationships with their companions. Recognizing their pets as spiritual teachers and eternal souls changes how they interact, communicate, and care for these beings. The relationship becomes a sacred partnership rather than simple ownership, a mutual journey of growth and love rather than a one-sided dependence. The grief process also transforms when viewed through Cayce's understanding. Instead of seeing death as final separation, pet loss becomes a temporary transition in an eternal relationship. This doesn't diminish the pain of physical separation, but provides a framework for healing that acknowledges the continuing bond. Many people report that accepting Cayce's vision of animal afterlife helps them remain open to the subtle signs of continued presence that they might otherwise dismiss as imagination. Perhaps most importantly, Cayce's animal readings offer a model for expanding human consciousness and compassion. By recognizing the spiritual nature of our animal companions, we develop the capacity to see the sacred in all beings. This expanded awareness becomes a foundation for greater environmental consciousness, social justice, and global compassion. The next time you look into your pet's eyes, remember Edgar Cayce's stunning answer to that grieving woman in 1932. You're not just seeing an animal, you're connecting with a soul on its own eternal journey. A being of light and love whose spirit will survive every transition and whose devotion transcends even death itself. You're encountering a teacher whose lessons are written in the language of unconditional love, a companion whose friendship is literally eternal. In the end, Edgar Cayce's most profound gift regarding animal souls wasn't just the revelation that they continue after death, it was the understanding that they never truly leave us at all. They remain in spirit, as close as our next loving thought of them, waiting with infinite patience for the moment when all souls reunite in the eternal embrace of divine love. This is the stunning truth that Edgar Cayce revealed to a grieving world. In the grand tapestry of consciousness, every thread of love, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, is woven into the eternal pattern. Our animal companions are not just temporary visitors to our lives, they are eternal partners in the endless dance of souls seeking to understand and express the one force that binds all creation together. Unconditional, everlasting love that transcends species, transcends death, and connects all conscious beings in an eternal web of divine purpose and infinite possibility. Imagine a family losing their beloved dog after many years of faithful companionship. Through tears and silence, everyone feels an impossible void to fill. However, within a few days, one of the children dreams of him. They see him running again, happy, accompanied by a luminous presence. For many, this might seem like mere nostalgia, but according to Edgar Cayce's readings and spiritual insights, these experiences are not simple illusions. He affirmed in numerous readings that animals also possess souls, and after death they don't simply vanish into nothingness, but are protected and guided in the spiritual realm. In some cases, they even remain close to those who loved them on earth, comforting them in the first days of grief. This changes everything, because if faith assures us that love never dies, how could we think that God would abandon the beings who gave us such unconditional love? Stay with me until the end of this video, because what you're about to discover about the destiny of dog souls can transform your understanding of life and death. And I want you to participate. Write in the comments if you've ever felt the presence of your pet after their passing, and I'll mark your comment with a little heart. When Edgar Cayce spoke about animals in the spiritual plane through his psychic readings, He made it clear that they too are part of the great universal family created by God. In his extensive collection of readings, particularly those dealing with the afterlife and soul progression, scenes appear where animals are not forgotten after death, but receive shelter and care. For many, this comes as a surprise, because it was always believed that only human beings had conscious continuity in the beyond. However, Cayce affirmed that animals possess what he called the soul pattern, a divine spark in evolution that also survives the moment of departure. The difference lies in the degree of consciousness. While humans have greater moral and spiritual responsibilities, animals live under the protection of simpler, yet equally sacred laws. In the first days after their transition, many dogs remain around their guardians, perceiving the bond of love that still unites them. This phenomenon has been reported in dreams, visions, and psychic experiences, where entire families claim to have felt once again the presence of their four-legged companion. Edgar Cayce described in his readings that in the spiritual dimensions there exist realms specifically designed for animal life. There, dogs, birds, and horses that have passed on are received and cared for by souls who serve as instructors and guardians of these kingdoms. This means that death does not destroy the essence of the animal, but opens a period of adaptation in another sphere. During the first days, some remain connected to the home where they lived, drawn by the affection that still circulates between them and their human guardians. Cayce explained that love is a real energy, a bond that is not broken by the grave, and that's why animals feel and respond to that call. This point is deeply comforting, because it shows that God could not have created bonds of such intense tenderness only to erase them in an instant. Faith is strengthened when we understand that these ties are part of the divine plan of evolution, both for human beings and for all other living creatures. In some of his most moving readings, Cayce transmitted messages in which souls who had crossed over mentioned with joy reuniting with family animals in the spiritual world. These were testimonies that deeply moved people, because they revealed that dogs and cats continued to exist in some way, sharing this new stage of life. There isn't an exact detail in his readings about how many days they remain with us, but there is certainty that during an initial period they continue connected until they are lovingly led to places of rest and learning in the spiritual plane. The purpose of those first days is transitional, both for the animal and for the family. For the guardians, it's a time when memories mix with sensations of nearness. For the animals, it's the opportunity to be sheltered without violent ruptures. That's why many report having felt their dog's presence lying at the foot of the bed or hearing their footsteps in the house shortly after their departure. All of this was explained by Cayce within a larger framework of teaching. The universe is one, and evolution excludes no creature. In his readings on soul development, Cayce commented that animals follow a progressive path, always guided by higher intelligences that care for them. This vision completely changes the way we understand the death of our dogs. It's no longer a definitive ending, but another stage within a continuous process. When an animal dies, what occurs is a release from their physical body, similar to that of humans, though with less spiritual complexity. This release is accompanied by benevolent forces that prevent prolonged suffering. What's most striking is knowing that in many cases, the guardian's love serves as a bridge, helping the animal feel safe and at peace. Prayer, affection, and gratitude are not lost. They are energies that reach the animal's spirit and propel them forward. In readings dealing with the transition process, Cayce also described scenes where benevolent souls take care of recently departed animals. Although the primary focus was often on human reincarnation processes, the notion clearly appears that all of nature is under divine protection. Edgar Cayce explained that animals are like younger siblings in the scale of creation, and that human beings have the mission to care for and protect them. This care doesn't end at death, because the same love that accompanied them on earth projects into the spiritual world. In the first days after departure, many dogs experience a kind of affective continuity. They seek out the spaces of the home, approach the places where they used to be with their guardians, and perceive in their own way the sadness and prayers of the family. Although they don't understand everything with clarity, they feel the bond of love that unites them, and this gives them tranquility to move forward to the new stage. In various readings, Cayce was asked whether animals would reunite with their guardians in the beyond. His response was always consistent. Yes, these reunions exist, although on a different plane than human relationships. Animals have a less individualized spiritual life, but they don't cease to feel because of this. This affirmation was received with relief by thousands of people who were mourning the loss of their dogs. Knowing that their faithful companion hadn't disappeared into nothingness, but continued living under divine protection, transformed pain into hope. During the first days, according to Cayce's explanations, spirits of light allow animals to remain close to their homes so that the separation process is gentler. Then they are conducted to places of rest where they receive assistance. These places were described in Cayce's readings as organized communities, where life flows with order and harmony, and where animals fulfill a function within the spiritual balance. A moving example is found in Cayce's readings for families who had lost children, where these children appeared in the spiritual realm accompanied by their dogs. This detail impressed families deeply because it demonstrated that the bond of love extended beyond the grave. Animals, in their purity and loyalty, become symbols of continuity and hope. This doesn't mean that all animals remain indefinitely with their guardians, but that in the first moments, when pain is most intense, many of them draw near as if wishing to console. Cayce said that God would not let sincere love become eternal suffering. For this reason, he permitted these spiritual encounters as a form of comfort. This teaching generates an inevitable question. If love is eternal, won't the bond we form with animals who marked our lives also be eternal? In readings dealing with life continuation, Cayce reinforced the idea that life after death is not a human privilege, but a universal law. Animals participate in this same cycle, though in a simpler way. When a dog dies, what occurs is a passage toward a level of existence adapted to their nature. In the first days, according to what the readings relate, they are not alone. Protective spirits surround and guide them. Many guardians in their prayers ask God to care for their pet. And Cayce confirmed that these prayers were heard because divine mercy excludes no creature. Here is the key of the message. What we do with love is never lost. The affection offered to a dog, the gratitude we feel for their company, and the sincere sadness at the moment of their departure are forces that transform into spiritual bridges. Thus, the first days after the animal's death are not of solitude, but of approach and comfort. In Edgar Cayce's teachings, the idea of love as a universal language that transcends barriers appears with great force. When a dog dies, that love doesn't cease. In the first days after departure, many guardians report experiences of feeling their pet's presence, whether in dreams or in moments of prayer. Cayce confirmed that these perceptions were not imaginations, but real contacts on the spiritual plane. These brief encounters have a clear purpose: to soften the pain of separation and transmit the certainty that life continues. In his messages, Cayce always insisted that sincere prayer opens doors in the spiritual world. Therefore, when remembering a deceased dog with gratitude and tenderness, the guardian connects with them in an invisible way, and this vibration acts as a bridge between both worlds. During the first days, this connection is even more intense, because the animal's spirit is still in the process of adaptation. Cayce showed in his readings how spiritual life is dynamic and organized, and although the focus was often on humans, it's clear that animals also participate in this greater structure. He described that specialized souls work on different fronts. Some dedicate themselves to medical assistance, others to sheltering the recently departed, and there are also those who care for animals. In those first days, the main task is to ensure that the dog's spirit doesn't get lost in the confusion of release. Just as human beings need guidance when leaving the body, animals also require accompaniment, though on a different scale. Divine goodness ensures that nothing in creation is left abandoned. This vision opens the eyes of believers and provokes profound reflection. If God cares for each creature, how could we doubt that He also watches over the destiny of dogs who gave us unconditional love on earth? The impact of these teachings is reflected in the lives of those who heard them directly from Cayce's readings. People who had lost their dogs came seeking comfort, and Cayce's readings always responded with humility and tenderness, assuring that the love they had shared had not disappeared. The readings told that in the spiritual plane, animals are welcomed in institutions prepared for them, where they receive care and continue their development. For the family, this certainty changed mourning into hope, knowing that the first days after death were not of suffering, but of divine shelter, strengthened faith and renewed confidence in God's justice. Thus, the memory of the dog went from being a cause of pain to becoming a source of spiritual inspiration, living proof that love is immortal. Another fundamental teaching transmitted by Cayce is that bonds of affection are respected by higher spirituality. The first days after a dog's death are a time when this bond manifests with intensity. The guardian feels the absence, but also experiences signs, the sensation of companionship, vivid memory, even the echo of a bark in the empty house. Although materialistic science doesn't recognize these experiences, spiritual doctrine validates them as real. Cayce said that love is the key to everything, and that God wouldn't create such profound feeling between humans and animals in vain. The first days, then, function as a transitional period in which both sides say goodbye without losing connection. With time, the dog advances in their evolutionary process, but the memory of their love remains forever engraved in the family's spiritual history. In readings about spiritual dimensions, Cayce commented that spiritual life is governed by laws of balance and justice that don't leave aside any creature. This vision allows us to understand that the first days after a dog's death form part of a loving process, not abandonment. Guardians feel an immense void, but often also perceive small signs, a comforting dream, a sensation of warmth in the place where the animal used to lie, even the impression of hearing them move in the house. Edgar Cayce never treated these experiences as fantasies. On the contrary, he recognized them as real manifestations of spiritual proximity. In his words, love is a bridge that connects dimensions, and therefore, in the initial days after departure, the dog is still near, responding to that affective bond. This understanding completely changes the way of facing grief. It's not a definitive goodbye, but a gradual farewell, in which family and animal continue linked by love and prayer. Cayce also explained that departed animals are guided by souls responsible for their collective evolution. During the first days, these protective souls closely accompany the dog, ensuring the transition is smooth. There is no eternal suffering or condemnation, because animals don't carry moral guilt like humans. What they experience is a kind of rest and welcome, in which they're allowed to be near their guardians for a time until they manage to adapt to the new plane. This teaching brings comfort because it shows that divine goodness is infinite and reaches all forms of life. For those who deeply loved their dogs, knowing they are received with tenderness in the spiritual world is confirmation that love is never lost. It's also a call to reflect. If God cares so carefully for animals, shouldn't we respect them more in our daily life? In Cayce's readings, the idea of continuity is repeated. Life doesn't stop, it only changes scenery. In the first days after death, the dog still feels connected to the physical environment, as if seeking to understand what happened. The guardians, for their part, remember them intensely, which strengthens this bond. It's a transitional period in which both worlds touch. Then, little by little, the animal is conducted to places of rest, where they continue their existence under the guidance of souls dedicated to their evolution. Cayce affirmed that these processes were natural and that no one should fear for their pet's destiny. The same love that sustained them on earth accompanies them in the beyond. This message not only alleviates pain, but strengthens faith. It makes us see that death doesn't destroy what is true, but transforms and elevates it. The impact of these teachings is so profound that many families found in them a new way to face loss. Instead of resigning themselves to emptiness, they began to cultivate gratitude for the time shared and hope for reunion. Cayce used to say that love is the footprint we leave in the hearts of those around us, and that this footprint never disappears. The first days after a dog's death are, then, an opportunity to reaffirm this truth. Love remains alive, crosses dimensions, and becomes the strongest bond between heaven and earth. Reflecting on this not only consoles, but also invites us to live more consciously, valuing each instant with the beings we love. In various readings and spiritual communications through Cayce, It's reaffirmed that divine mercy is perfect and that all creatures are sheltered at the moment of transition. For dogs, this care manifests in the first days with special closeness toward their guardians. Many testimonies recorded by Cayce narrate that dreams in which the pet appeared were not illusions, but real visits. These encounters had a profound purpose: to alleviate anguish, reinforce the certainty that the bond continued, and prepare both animal and family for gradual separation. Cayce insisted that sincere prayer has real power. When someone prays with gratitude for their deceased dog, this vibration reaches the animal's spirit and transmits peace. Thus, the first days after death are not of abandonment, but of mutual comfort, in which guardians send love and animals respond with spiritual presence. Another powerful teaching transmitted by Cayce is that animals, like humans, follow an evolutionary plan traced by God. The difference is that they live in a state of spiritual innocence, guided by higher intelligences. The first days after death mark the beginning of this transit toward more elevated levels of existence. In this time, they're allowed to remain with their guardians because human love acts as a balm that facilitates the transition. Later, they are conducted to spiritual communities where they receive care, companionship, and preparation for future steps in their evolution. This vision invites us to reflect on our responsibility toward them while they're on Earth. If the spiritual plane receives them with such affection, shouldn't we also treat them with more respect, dignity, and compassion in our daily life? In public readings and sessions, Cayce related cases that deeply moved audiences. People who had lost their dogs sought him with tears in their eyes, asking what had happened to their companion's soul. Cayce responded with serenity that animals didn't become extinct, but continued existing on another plane. He assured them that in the first days they still remained near, and that prayer and love were the bridge that kept them united. These responses awakened faith and renewed hope in those who suffered. Knowing that the dog hadn't disappeared into nothingness but was under God's care, transformed pain into comfort. This faith, nourished by the certainty that life continues, became a driving force to face grief with more serenity. Finally, Cayce always emphasized that true love is eternal. The first days after a dog's death are an opportunity to prove it in practice. Although physical eyes no longer see them, the heart feels them, and prayer reaches them. This is the great revelation. Spiritual life is not exclusive to human beings, but a divine gift extended to all creation. Therefore, when we remember our dog with gratitude, we are participating in this universal truth. The bonds of love we form on earth are seeds of eternity that bloom in heaven. This message, far from being a fantasy, is a call to faith and hope, reminding us that nothing done with love is ever lost. In the later years of his life, Edgar Cayce was approached countless times with questions about animal survival. His response was always coherent. God abandons none of his creatures. The first days after a dog's death are a transitional stage where divine mercy shows itself clearly. It's not a time of darkness, but of approach, spiritual companionship, and mutual comfort. Cayce pointed out that many guardians, in the midst of pain, received visits from their pets in dreams. These encounters were proof that the bond of love remained alive. Higher spirituality allows these experiences to soften departure and strengthen faith. And it's precisely in those first days when human love, expressed in sincere prayers, has the greatest effect on the animal's spirit, transmitting calm and confidence in the new path they begin. Spiritual doctrine, through Edgar Cayce's readings, teaches us that death is not the end, but a change of state. This includes animals who shared our life. The continuity of their existence is part of a greater plan of evolution. The first days are just the beginning of a journey in which they will receive care, companionship, and new opportunities. For guardians, understanding this transforms pain into hope. Knowing that the dog didn't become extinct in nothingness, but continues forward under divine protection, is a balm for the heart. This certainty awakens gratitude and reinforces faith in God's justice. It also invites us to live with more responsibility and love toward all beings, conscious that our acts have an echo in eternity. What's most moving is discovering that the bonds of love we form with our dogs are considered sacred on the spiritual plane. They don't break with death, but are elevated and strengthened. The first days after departure are a confirmation of this truth. We feel their presence, remember their gestures, perceive their affection as if they were still here. This experience is not illusion, but testimony that love is immortal. Edgar Cayce left us this legacy of hope, showing that life continues for all, even for animals. And by understanding this, the heart opens to deeper faith, capable of transforming the way we look at death and life. Therefore, if you've lost your dog and still remember them with tears, receive this message as a light. In the first days after their departure, they weren't alone. They were with you, responding to the love that united them to you. And now, they continue their path under divine protection, awaiting the moment of a greater reunion. Faith assures us that nothing of true love is lost, and that everything we gave and received is kept in eternity. Keep this hope alive, because spiritual life is more real than we imagine, and the love that unites hearts is the most powerful force in the universe. If this message touched your heart, I invite you to support this channel. Give this video a like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss new content. And share in the comments your experience or memory of your beloved dog. I'll read every comment and mark it with a little heart so you know I saw it. Your participation not only strengthens this community, but also honors the memory of those faithful companions who remain alive in God's love. Animals after death. 3 signs your pet came back, Cayce explains. Sometimes love doesn't end where life does. You might have felt it yourself. A soft brush of air against your leg when no one's there, a sudden familiar sound in the quiet of your home, or the feeling that your pet is still with you somehow. These moments make people stop and wonder, could love really be powerful enough to cross the veil between life and death? Edgar Cayce believed it could. He taught that nothing created through love is ever truly lost, because love is the vibration of God Himself. And when a soul, even that of an animal, is touched by pure love, that energy doesn't disappear. It returns, it lingers, it reminds you that life is eternal. If you've ever lost a pet, you know that ache that sits in your chest, that strange silence that replaces the sound of their paws or their purrs. But what if that silence isn't the end? What if those moments of peace are when their spirit is closest to you? Before we go further, take a second to like this video, share it with someone who misses their pet, and leave a comment about how you felt their presence. I'll mark every story with a heart. Cayce explained that animals have what he called a group soul. It means their consciousness isn't separate the way human souls are, but connected in a shared field of instinct, memory, and love. When a pet bonds with a human, that connection becomes so strong that a fragment of that shared soul starts resonating individually, guided by the love it received. It's why some people feel their dog or cat had a personality, emotions, even moral understanding. That bond, Cayce said, lifts the animal's spirit closer to human consciousness, closer to the image of God. In the book of Genesis, God gives Adam the power to name every living creature. That wasn't just about giving labels, it was a sacred act of connection. To name is to recognize life, to care is to reflect divine stewardship. When you love your pet, you're performing an echo of that first moment. You're acknowledging a spark of God's breath in that creature. And when the body dies, the spirit responds to love's memory. It can return not in a ghostly sense, but through vibration, energy, and signs that echo the language of the heart. The first sign, Cayce said, often appears in the form of sensation, a warmth, a soft weight at your feet, a presence where they used to rest. These aren't illusions. Energy never dies, it transforms. The comfort you feel might be their essence, responding to your longing. The human mind, when softened by grief and faith, becomes sensitive to what the eyes cannot see. Jesus once said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Maybe those who truly loved an animal with that childlike purity also become capable of sensing that unseen world. The veil between spirit and flesh is thinner when love is involved. Cayce said that's why certain homes feel alive, even after the pet has gone, because the vibration of joy, loyalty, and trust hasn't left. It lingers as proof that death is only a doorway, not a wall. The second sign often comes through dreams. Cayce believed dreams are the bridge between the physical mind and the spiritual dimension. When you dream of your pet alive, happy, or simply looking at you with peace, it isn't your brain replaying memories. It's your subconscious visiting the realms where souls rest and communicate. In those moments, time doesn't exist. There's no past or future, only recognition. Many people have awakened in tears after such dreams, not of sadness but relief. It's because at that instant, their spirit felt the truth Cayce always repeated. The soul never dies, it changes form. God's creation is circular, not linear. The love you give returns to you, sometimes in the most unexpected ways, and when that dream comes, it's a divine permission to release the pain, to understand that your friend didn't vanish, only moved beyond your sight. The third sign, according to Cayce, is synchronicity, those divine coincidences that seem too personal to ignore. You may find a feather where your bird used to perch, hear a bark in the distance right as you think of your dog, or notice a shadow moving in the corner of your eye where your cat once played. Cayce described these experiences as the language of vibration. When a bond of love exists, the energy field shared between you and your pet doesn't vanish. It shifts into subtler dimensions and finds ways to remind you that the connection remains alive. Even the Bible reflects this truth in the words of Jesus. Not even a sparrow falls to the ground without the Father knowing. If God cares for every creature, then surely the love between you and your pet carries meaning in eternity. These moments of synchronicity aren't random, they are gentle whispers of God telling you that love is never wasted. Sometimes, those signs come through new life. Many people who have lost pets later find another animal with an uncanny resemblance. The same look in the eyes, the same habits, the same affection. Cayce taught that while animals don't reincarnate the way humans do, the vibration of love can attract a similar soul group to return into your life, guided by divine harmony. That's why it feels familiar, as if your old friend somehow found a way back. He explained that souls, even animal souls, are drawn to where they're loved, because love is the strongest energy in the universe. When you welcome that new companion, you're continuing a spiritual dialogue that began long before this lifetime. You're not replacing your pet, you're recognizing how God works through continuity, not endings. When Jesus spoke about the Good Shepherd, he wasn't only talking about people. He said, "I know my sheep, and my sheep know me." The metaphor extends beyond humanity. It reminds us that divine care flows to all living beings. To care for a creature is to practice the same love Christ showed to humanity, a love that sees no division between species, only the shared breath of the Creator. Cayce emphasized that through compassion toward animals, humans learn empathy, humility, and spiritual growth. Every act of kindness toward them refines your soul's vibration closer to God's frequency. So when your pet visits you through signs, sensations, or dreams, it's not just their spirit comforting you. It's also God using that love to remind you that heaven is not somewhere far away. It begins wherever love remains alive. If you've ever doubted whether your pet still feels your love, remember this. Love is the only force that bridges every realm. Cayce believed that the spiritual and physical worlds are layered, like waves in the same ocean. Your prayers, your tears, and your gratitude ripple across those layers, and your pet feels them as light, warmth, and peace. Even now that connection continues. So talk to them, thank them, bless them in your prayers. It's not imagination, it's communication through the soul's language. Just as Christ said that not even death can separate us from God's love, nothing can erase the bond that was formed in purity. If this message brought comfort to your heart, take a moment to like this video and share it so others can feel that same hope. Leave a comment about how you felt your pet's presence. I'll read and heart every one of them. Your story might heal someone who still cries at night for their lost friend. Cayce often reminded people that the spirit world is not a place of shadows or silence. It's a realm of vibration, color, and light. He described it as layers of consciousness, each one closer to the source of divine energy. Within those layers, every soul, human or animal, finds its rightful frequency. When a pet dies, its spirit rises gently through those layers, guided by the energy of love that you gave it while it was alive. Cayce explained that animals feel and respond to that love, just as humans respond to faith. The stronger the love, the higher that soul can move. So in truth, you are helping your pet ascend each time you remember them with gratitude rather than sorrow. Grief anchors the soul to sadness, but love releases it into light. This is why prayer is powerful. It transforms pain into peace for both the living and the departed. In God's design, love is never one-sided. It's an eternal exchange. Think of the parable of the lost sheep. Jesus said the shepherd left 99 in the open country to look for the one that was lost. That story wasn't just about people. It's about divine care for every living being. God does not abandon even the smallest of his creations. Cayce echoed that truth when he said that no act of love is ever wasted. Each time you rescued, fed, or comforted your pet, you contributed to its spiritual evolution. That's why the bond feels sacred. Because it is. It's a reflection of God's own love, expressed through you. When you feel your pet near, it's not a haunting, it's a blessing, a reminder that heaven is closer than you think. Heaven isn't only for human souls, it's the home of everything born out of love. Cayce also said that animals help prepare the human soul for greater compassion. They teach loyalty without condition, presence without judgment, and forgiveness without effort. When they leave, it's as if a part of your heart gets torn open. But that wound becomes the space where divine understanding enters. Through that loss, many people discover empathy not only for animals, but for all creation. It's the same awareness Jesus showed when he said that the meek shall inherit the earth. Meekness isn't weakness, it's spiritual strength born from gentleness. Those who truly love animals are among the meek because they recognize God's fingerprints in the smallest of beings. Your pet's spirit, Cayce taught, continues to grow. It may one day return in a new form, in a different body, or through another creature drawn by your same vibration of love. When you meet that new friend and feel something strangely familiar, don't dismiss it as coincidence. In God's world, there are no accidents, only connections. That moment may be the continuation of an eternal story between your soul and theirs. And one day, when your own time comes to cross the veil, that familiar presence will be waiting for you, not as an echo, but as light, whole, joyful, and free. Before we continue, if these words are touching your heart, subscribe and join this community. Here we explore the deeper truth Cayce revealed, that every form of love, human or animal, is a thread in the divine fabric of creation. Like this video and share it with someone who needs to believe that their beloved pet still lives in God's care. Cayce once said that heaven is not somewhere you go, but something you awaken to. When your heart is full of love, you're already standing at its threshold. That means the connection between you and your pet doesn't need to wait for death to be real again. It continues now, in every moment you remember them with kindness. God designed creation as a continuous stream of energy, not a chain that breaks. So when that furry companion touched your life, you were experiencing a divine appointment, a lesson in love, wearing 4 legs and fur. Each animal that enters your path is a messenger, teaching something about faith, patience, and unconditional affection. Jesus often spoke about the simple things of nature, the birds of the sky, the lilies of the field, because through them, he reminded us that God's care extends to all life. Your pet was one of those reminders in motion, proof that love can be innocent, constant, and pure. Many people fear that when they lose a pet, they'll never see them again. But Cayce's readings bring a comforting answer. In the spiritual realms, energy recognizes energy. When two beings have shared a vibration of love, they can find each other again through that same frequency. That means your pet's spirit still recognizes you. When you pray for them, they feel it as warmth. When you smile remembering them, they feel it as light. This is how heaven communicates, through emotion elevated to spirit. The love you gave them on earth becomes the bridge you'll both cross someday. And perhaps that's what Jesus meant when he said, "Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Your treasure, your heart, your love. They remain connected beyond this world. Cayce also believes that animals serve as reflections of divine order, showing humans how to return to harmony. They don't question their purpose, they simply live it. They love without agenda, trust without demand, forgive without hesitation. If we could live even a fraction of that purity, Cayce said, humanity would heal its soul. So when your pet sends signs, through dreams, sensations, or synchronicities, it's not only to comfort you, but to remind you of that lesson. Love without fear, serve without pride, and stay faithful to what is good. The greatest way to honor your pet isn't through tears, but through transformation, by becoming a vessel of the same unconditional love they once gave you so freely. In the quiet of prayer, imagine your pet resting in fields of light, running joyfully free from pain. That vision isn't fantasy, it's a glimpse of truth. Cayce described heaven as layers of beauty shaped by consciousness, and the souls of animals dwell there in peace, near the spirits of those who love them most. They are cared for, guided, and protected until all souls, human and animal alike, return to the source. So take heart. Nothing God creates is ever truly lost. In the same way a wave returns to the sea, every life returns to the heart of the Creator. And when your time comes to step through that same veil, the love you once gave will be waiting, wagging its tail, glowing in joy, whispering that it never left you. It only went ahead to prepare the way. So if tonight you find yourself missing that familiar sound, the pause on the floor, the soft breath at your side, pause for a moment. Close your eyes and say, "Thank you, God, for the love you allowed me to know." That prayer alone bridges worlds. Cayce explained that every sincere thought becomes light in the spiritual plane, and those lights are felt by the souls we've loved. That's why sometimes in the stillness you feel peace wash over you, as if invisible arms or paws wrapped around your heart. That's not imagination. It's grace. God's way of reminding you that separation is temporary, but love is forever. Christ himself proved that truth when he returned after death, not as a distant spirit, but as living love. The resurrection was the divine promise that nothing truly dies, everything transforms. Your pet's presence in your life was never a coincidence. It was a small reflection of that resurrection power, a daily reminder of loyalty, joy, and devotion. Every time they greeted you, they mirrored how the soul longs for God, with excitement, trust, and surrender. And when they left this world, it was not an end but an evolution. Cayce said that death is simply a change in vibration, like shifting from one key to another in the same divine song. That song continues in the spiritual world, and you are still part of it. So the next time you sense them near, don't doubt it. Whisper their name, offer a smile, and know that your love was powerful enough to echo across eternity. Maybe one day, in God's timing, you'll see them again. Not as a ghost, but as light alive with recognition. And in that reunion, you'll understand what Cayce and Christ both tried to tell us, that all creation moves toward reunion, not loss. The entire universe is built on return. Every heartbeat, every sunrise, every tear that turns into gratitude is proof of it. So let your heart rest. Heaven holds your pet in the same arms that hold you now. And the day you step into that light, they'll be there, running, flying, glowing, with the same unbreakable joy they once brought into your home. If this message touched your spirit, leave a comment below about how your pet changed your life. I'll read each one and leave a heart as a sign of love shared. Like this video if it brought you peace, and share it with someone who needs to hear that love never dies. Remember, the soul of every creature returns to the source, and through love we all meet again. That's God's promise, sealed through Christ, revealed through Cayce, and alive in the memory of every pet that ever loved you.